Hi, in this particular video we're going to be looking at the 2017 higher paper for Edexcel, and this is actually paper 3. In the last video we finished at question number 7, so we're going to start from question number 8, and if you follow the link below in the description you'll be able to download the paper and have a go at some of the questions for yourself. Please do that, please do try each of these questions and then compare your solutions. I'm going to aim for this video to be about 25-30 minutes or so it should give you about an hour's worth of revision. Hopefully that's okay, so let's move on then with question number 8, which talks about a square which is inside a circle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just draw that up as a bit of a quick sketch, and it says that we've got this circle, and inside this circle we've got a square, okay, and the square has sides of length x, okay, and we're also told that the area of the circle is 49 centimeters squared. So let's just have a look at that. So one of the formulas you're going to need is area equals pi r squared. And what we're going to do is try and use some of this information in order for us to work out this value of x along here. Okay, well the first thing is we know that 49 is the area, and that's equal to pi r squared. So if we want to work out r squared, we're going to divide 49 by pi. Okay, so if you prefer, then we can then square root this and say it's 49 over pi equals r. Okay, now I suggest at this point you could pick up your calculator and kind of work that out as a number if you wanted to, but sometimes it's just kind of easier to leave it in, they call this the surd form, so it's kind of easier to leave it in surd form, and it's just a bit neater when you're actually writing it out. So let's see what we've got now. If we know the radius is this root 49 over pi, then if you can imagine what we've got, if I take that square, okay, and remember it's inside a circle, which means the lengths along here are both the radius. It's actually the center of the circle, and this line along here and this line along here. So what we're saying is we've got this right angle triangle, and bearing in mind, don't forget we're trying to work out its value of x. So what we've got is a little bit of Pythagoras, where we can say that x squared equals r squared plus r squared, okay? And we've already got the value of r, which is going to be this, okay? Or if you like, r squared is this, okay? So we can write 49 over pi plus 49 over pi, which are the two values of r squared. Pop that into a calculator and you're going to get a value of x squared as equal to, and this in this particular case now we end up with numbers rather than surd forms, so 4368885, but that's okay because when we square root that we're going to get our answer. So x is equal to the square root of the answer, and if you pop that again into your calculator you end up with 5.585. Okay, now it does again ask us to give the answer correct to 3 significant figures, so I'm going to write that as 5.59, and this is centimeters to 3 significant figures. Okay, I hope that's all right for you. It's one of those questions where I think you have to recognize this value of r is actually the radius, and therefore you can use a little bit of Pythagoras to be able to work out this value of x. Okay, let's move on then to question number 9, and question number 9 deals with some box plots. Okay, box plots are becoming relatively popular. There's quite a few kind of questions on box plots that float around. This one is not too bad really. The first part of it says work out the interquartile range for the amounts of money spent by these male students. So basically what we're saying is that this is the male students, the interquartile range is this length here, so it's the difference, the interquartile range is the difference between the upper quartile, which is this one, which I think is 330, take away the lower quartile, which is this point here, which is 150. Okay, so that's going to give you an IQ range of, oh, beg your pardon, 180. Okay, so £180 is their interquartile range. Okay, next bit of it is it says we've got some information about female students when they're on holiday, and we need to be able to draw this information onto the grid, and very helpfully they've given us the smallest value, the lower quartile, the median, the upper quartile, and largest. So really it's just a case of taking all of this information and transposing it straight onto the graph up here. Now, because it is a video, I'm just going to have a go at doing that, and hopefully it'll be okay. So I've got the smallest, which is going to be 60, which is around about here. Okay, and then I've got the lower quartile, which is 180, which is about, oh, I guess it's about there. Okay, I've got the median, which is 300. That's easy enough, I can see that one. Okay, I've got the upper quartile, which is 350, which is about there. And then I've got the largest, which is 650, and again, that's about there. Okay, so what you need to do then is just draw that. Now, normally you would probably do that with a ruler, just to make it look a little bit better than I've done it. Okay, but that would be your box plots for the female students, and that would get you the 2 marks. And then the final part of this particular question, it says in part C, Chris says the box plots show that female students spent more money than male students. Is Chris correct? Well, yes, he is actually correct. He is correct. And the reason he's correct is because the female students have a greater median than the male. And I think it might be useful, although it's only 1 mark in this particular question, but you could say that this is 300, is it 300? Yeah, 300 for the female and 250 for the male. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. It's 1 mark and you just need to make that conclusion. Okay, next one is compound interest. Again, very popular on calculator papers. This particular one they're asking is actually to work out the compound interest value, the percentage value, knowing that this particular person, Naomi, invests £6,000 for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years they get £8,000 return. So really all we're saying with that is that you've got 8,029.35. You're going to put it in as an original amount, and then you're going to multiply it by some sort of multiplier for 5 years. Okay, now this is going to be trial and error, because we could say, well, actually it's 1.03, which would be a 3% investment. Now, unfortunately, if you pop that in a calculator, that doesn't equal it. So we've got to go all over again and multiply it by, say, 1.04 to the value of 5. That doesn't equal it. I did this and I was a bit surprised that this particular person was able to get an interest rate of 6%. Okay, so 1.06%. Actually, that equaled it. Okay, so in this particular question, the value of x equals 6%. Don't forget here, this is compound interest. This is the decimal equivalent of 106%. So what we've done there is we said this is 106%, okay, because it's compound. Now, percent means over 100. So the decimal equivalent is 1.06. So that's how I've got these particular numbers. That's 103% and 104%. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Let's move on then to question number 11. So question number 11 deals with, I think they call it counting strategies now. Okay, so Jeff chooses a shrub and a rose tree for his garden. Okay, and at the garden centre is 17 different types of shrubs and some rose trees. There's 215 different ways to choose one shrub and one rose tree. Is he correct? Well, no, he's actually not, because if there's 17 different types of shrub, there has to be a multiple of 17. Beg your pardon. There has to be a number that when you multiply by 17 will divide into 215 in order to be, for that statement to be correct. In other words, the number of rose trees available must be a whole number. Well, actually it's not, because if we do 215 divided by 17, it means then that that's not a whole number, and therefore in this particular case, Jeff isn't correct, okay, with his particular statement. So I put therefore Jeff is not correct. Okay. All right. Hope that's all right. Let's move. Okay, so let's move on then to question number 12. With question number 12, we've got the points A, B, C, and D are in order on a straight line, and we're giving some ratios to actually play around with. So what we're basically saying is we've got these A to B and B to D. Well, that's 1/6 of the way, and this is 5/6 of the way. So if you can imagine this, just the line here has been chopped up into 6 pieces. Well, A to B would be 1 piece of it, and then B to D would be 5 pieces of it. So actually what we've got then is a fraction. So we can actually say that that's the same as saying 1 out of 6 and 5 out of 6. In a similar way, we can look at these other ratios and we can say, well, in that case, I've got 7 out of 18 for A to C and 11 out of 18 for C to D. Okay, so the difficulty we've got there is actually we're working with different denominators. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I'm going to make these the same denominators. So what I can say is, rather than writing A to B and B to D as 1/6 and 5/6, I'm going to write this A to B over 18 and then B to D over 18 as well. So rather than chopping the bits of wood up into 6 pieces, I'm going to chop it up into 18 pieces. Okay, so what I can say then is 6 into 18 is 3, so 3 times 1 is 3, and then 6 into 18 is going to be 3 times, so 3 times 5 is 15. So these are the direct equivalent fractions to these two fractions here. So what we're saying then is we've got A to B, B to C and C to D. So this whole piece of wood, if you like, I keep saying piece of wood, but it's kind of what I'm thinking in my mind, is that I've got this long piece of wood, and what I'm doing is I'm chopping it up into 18 pieces, okay, and then 3 pieces of that are A to B. We've got this information here. 3 out of the 18 are A to B. Similarly, we know that C to D is 11 out of the 18 pieces, okay? So that also means then that B to C must be the remainder, because we've chopped this bit of wood up into 18 pieces. So that means B to C must be 4. Okay, so I think with this type of question, you've just really got to make sure that you've got the same denominator to make it a little bit easier for yourself. Okay, so let's move on then to question number 13, and question number 13 deals with inequalities. So with inequalities, what we've got to do is use this information to write down the 3 inequalities defined by the shaded region. Okay, so let's have a look at that then. Well, the first one is this line along here. Now this line along here is this line, and at that particular point we're going to say that y equals 2. Okay, but we're also, as an inequality, what we're saying is that the inequalities are above the values of y, and also they could include, because this is actually a solid line, and the normal convention is that if it's a solid line, it includes the inequality. So the first thing I can do is I can say that one of the inequalities is that y is greater or equal to minus 2. Okay, and there is also, we can look at the same sort of idea with this particular line that goes along here, because this line is where y equals x. Okay, and if you look at that, you can see the value of x is 2 and the value of y is 2, and that's that point there. If we travel further along the line, we've got 0 0, and down here we've got minus 2 minus 2. So this particular line is the line of y equals x. Okay, now again, we're going to write the inequality, because it's a solid line, we're going to write it as y being, well, actually in this particular case, again, it's greater than, so it's greater than or equal to x. Okay, so those are two of the lines, and then the third line really is this line that goes along here. So this line, a little bit trickier to work out, because effectively you've got to just do a little bit of work just to make sure that you've got the equation of the line. So the first thing is that you'd write down the general form of the line, which is y equals mx plus c. Okay, well, c is fairly easy because we're looking at this line along here, and c is the y-intercept where it crosses the y-intercept, and that is going to be a value of positive 1. Okay, what we need to do then is work out the gradient of that particular line. Well, the way we work out gradient is difference in y divided by difference in x. Okay, so you need to just pick a triangle. It doesn't really matter where the triangle is. I'm going to make it sort of a nice big triangle down here and along to here. Okay, so if I use the values of y here, what we're saying is the difference between this point and this 2 here to minus 2 is going to be 4. And then the difference in x is going to be this along here, which is a difference of between minus 6 and positive 2, so that's going to be 8. Okay, so what it tells us then is the gradient is going to be equal to a half. Okay, oops, there we go. Okay, so hopefully that's okay. This is 4 along here, and this is 8 along here. So the difference in y is 4, difference in x is 8, so that reduces then to a half. So we're in a position then where we can write the equation of this particular line as y equals a half x plus 1. Okay, so therefore we've got our final inequality, and what we're saying with that is the value of y is below this line. Okay, so in this particular line is y is less than or equal to a half x plus 1, and those are the 3 inequalities that you need for that particular answer. Okay, hope that's okay for you. Let's move on to question number 14. Question number 14 deals with an algebraic fraction. Like anything else with all of these videos that we're doing, if you find there's something that you're not sure of, please do have a look on the channel, and you'll be able to search the channel and have a look for some other examples and some other playlists, or as always put a comment below and I'll always be delighted to come back to you. So the first one is that at the top here you've got the difference of 2 squares. Now this is something that you need to kind of build up with a little bit of experience, that minus 16, or 16 rather, is a square number, and actually this is 1x squared. Well, 1 is also a square number, so I can write the top at least as x plus 4 multiplied by x minus 4. If you're not sure about that, please do have a look at some of the work on the playlist. Okay, the second one is a little bit more tricky because we need to factorize that, or the denominator here. Well, one of the ways that works very effectively is that if you multiply 2 and minus 12 together, what you get is minus 24. And then we're looking for 2 factors of 24 that when you add them together become minus 5. Well, those 2 factors are going to be minus 8 and 3, so positive 3 if you like. So minus 8 times positive 3 is minus 24, and minus 8 plus 3 is going to be minus 5, okay? And what we do then is we write this out as 2x squared, and rather than writing minus 5x, we write these two factors. So that's minus 8x plus 3x minus 12, okay? So those two numbers in the middle, when you add them together, will become minus 5. And then the next stage is to factorise these first two terms. So the top I'm going to put as x plus 4, as I did before, times x minus 4. And then underneath I'm going to factorise these two terms, and I'm going to factorise them for 2x. Because if I do that, I've got then 2x times x becomes 2x squared, and then 2x times minus 4 becomes minus 8x. Okay, the second two terms I do exactly the same with, but this time I'm going to factorise them for 3, and that becomes again x minus 4. And really what you want to do is to produce this where you've got two factors in common. Because if you've got these two factors in common, then you can write that as going to be, again, x plus 4 times x minus 4 at the top. But you can write the bottom as 2x plus 3 times the common factor as x minus 4. Okay, and then to simplify this, you would just simply lose those two. So therefore, the answer to this particular question is going to be x plus 4 divided by 2x plus 3. Okay, hope that's all right. Please do have a look at some of the playlists. If you add a comment below, I'll always come back to you, and I will point you in the direction of some of the playlists for these sorts of questions. Okay, then it says B, make V the subject of the formula. All right, well, the problem you've got here is you've got these brackets to play with. So what we need to do is we need to say that W equals 15t minus 30v, and that's divided by v. Okay, now just as a little point here, I've made this deliberately different. It looks a little bit like a square root sign, but it just makes it easier for me to see what it is I'm working with. Okay, my writing isn't good, as some comments keep pointing out, but I try my best. Okay, my maths is better than my writing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply through by v, so I'm going to get v equals 15t minus 30v. Okay, when I've done that, I need to get my terms containing v on one side, so both of them together. So I'm going to add 30v to both sides, and I get wv plus 30v equals 15t. Okay, and then it's a case of the trick really is to factorise for v. Maybe remember that I need to get v on its own and make v the subject, so I can factorise that like that. Okay, and then it's just a case of dividing through by w plus 30. So I can say that v equals 15t divided by w plus 30, and that's the answer to this particular question. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Let's move on. I think this will be probably the final question in this particular video, where we're going to move on to question number 15, which is dealing with a triangle, and what it tells us is that the area of the triangle is 6 root 2 meters squared, and we're going to use that information to work out the value of x. Okay, well, there is a formula you need to remember, which is with this type of triangle, or any type of triangle, area equals a half AB sine C. Now you need to know this angle and these two lengths, which you do, albeit in the form of x. You also have been given the value of the area, so what we can do is plug this information into this formula and then use it to be able to work out the value of x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write 6 root 2 equals a half. Okay, now A, I'm going to say, is going to be this value here, 2x minus 1. So half 2x minus 1, okay, and then b is going to be x plus 3, and that's going to be multiplied by the sine of 45 degrees. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. So let's just work that out and make it look a little bit better to actually work with. Well, first thing is that if you do 6 root 2 and then you do a half times the sine of 45 in your calculator, you're going to end up with root 2 over 4. Now I know it looks a little bit scary, but it's kind of a little bit easier to work with, because now what I've done is I've got rid of this half and I've got rid of this sine 45. The only thing I've got left to do is to multiply this out just to make it suit myself. So I'm going to get 2x squared plus 6x minus x minus 3, okay, and then if I just tidy that up a little bit, what I'm going to get is 2x squared plus 6x minus x is going to be plus 5x, and that's minus 3. Now remember that this bit has been multiplied by this, so what I'm going to do is divide through both sides by this term. So it does look a little bit untidy, but I'm going to get 6 root 2 on my right side divided by root 2 over 4. Okay, now it doesn't really matter so much because this is a calculator paper. Obviously it is untidy, but if you use the fraction key, you'll find out that actually magically that whole term works out as 24. Okay, so a bit of a letdown there. It's just a fairly straightforward number, and that's going to be equal to 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. Okay, so what we need to do then is get this equal to 0, because you can't factorise this unless it is equal to 0. So if I take that 24 over to the right hand side, I get 5x. I got minus 3 plus 24 is going, beg your pardon, minus 3 minus 24 is going to be minus 27. Okay, now at this point I was hoping that this would factorise quite easily, but unfortunately it just doesn't. So we really have to, and I think because it's a 5-mark question, they're really pushing us a little bit that we've got to take this information and use the quadratic formula. Okay, so if we use the quadratic formula, we just plug this information in, and we're going to use, if I write this at the side here, the quadratic formula, x equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. You're going to need to remember that. Okay, because then we've got the values of a, b and c. This is the value of a, the value of b, and the value of c is minus 27. So I'm going to end up with minus 5 plus or minus the root of 25 minus 4 times, remember I sometimes put a dot in to mean times, minus 27, and that's divided by 4. Okay, now my strong suggestion, and I've seen this lots of times, is that you do work this out separately, okay? Don't let the calculator do these calculations, because you need to work out, this particular bit is called the discriminant. You need to work out the discriminant separately, okay? Because of these negative signs. This is going to be 25, and then it's minus 4 times 2 times minus 27. Well, that is going to become a positive number, okay? So do be very careful about how your calculator will manage with these sorts of negatives. Funnily enough, I did have a comment on one of the posts recently, and it was precisely that the student was complaining it came up with a maths error. Well, the reason it came up with an error is because of this negative sign in here. So do be careful, because what you should end up with is minus 5 plus the root of 241 divided by 4, and minus 5 minus the root of 241 divided by 4. And if you pop those two into a calculator, you're going to get two values. One value is a positive value of 2.631, and one value is a negative value of minus 5.131. Okay, well, you can't measure a negative value, so the value of x has to be positive. Okay, so in this particular case, correct to 3 significant figures, x must equal 2.63. Okay, hope that's all right. Bit of a long one, so I think we'll take a break at this particular point. We'll start in the next video from question number 16. I hope it's been useful for you. Please do have a look at the playlist and have a look at the other videos within this particular channel if you're not sure about anything. Also add a comment. I'll always come back to you, and I'll look forward to seeing you inside the next video.